Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the NSL's podcast. Hope everyone's well who's listening. Now, I know about the show as my co-host John will be joining me, but an hour before this was recorded, he decided to text in saying he was hungover, but we'll let him off. I mean, we've all hit the drink this weekend after the news was seen from Celtic Park, so I can't really blame him. But I am delighted to be joined by a show regular, Ross. How are you, Ross?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
I'm fine, buddy. We're going to get stuck into some topics, and including this Postecoglou guy that no one seems to know much about, but we'll get into that later in the show. And also a special guest from the Sellik, the Thunder. I hope we're getting that right, but how are you, Ryan McGinley?
Right. Yeah, that's the right name. I'm doing well, mate. How are you? I'm glad to be on.
We're glad to have you on. We appreciate you coming on, buddy. And as I said, we have a lot to talk about. We've seen the fallout over the weekend. We did our reaction video, and I have to give a shout out to the people who shoot it. It's so far our highest ever viewed podcast, and hitting over 5,000 views for us. That's big. For the Celtic the Thunder guys, that's small, but we'll celebrate any victory coming from views on our front, and we do appreciate it from everyone who listened to that show. But what we've seen over the weekend was different snippets coming out of why this deal might have fell through, from the likes of his backroom team to his transfer targets to his budget. I'm leaning towards that side of things because I don't believe, I'll come to yourself, Ryan, I don't believe for a minute that his backroom team would have been sounded out literally the week he was contacted by Celtic to see if they're interested in coming up. What's your opinion if you've had a few days to this? And I know you guys did a reaction to it. You did 2 lives on the Friday, I believe. I watched them both. They were a good watch. But as the days have gone on, have you kind of mellowed a bit?
I'm 50-50 towards the whole thing, to be perfectly honest with you, because on Friday afternoon I was laughing when the Stephen McGowan tweet came out, because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And I felt like crying as soon as that came out. So I wasn't even surprised that it fell through, the amount of time that it was taking for it to actually get over the line. Over the past couple of days, I think it has mellowed a wee bit. It comes and goes. I find myself every couple of hours going like, oh, I wish we could have got Eddie Howe in the door. Like, he would have had all his transfer targets ready and raring to go. But, no, I've mellowed a wee bit now. I think today's the first day that I've not really thought about it as much, and I've been more on the Postecoglou sort of side. If there is a side to be on, it's very 50-50, I would say, especially on social media just now. A lot of people want to give him a chance, and the same amount of people just want to slag him off for everything, when he really isn't there to defend himself yet. I think he should be given a proper crack at the whip, to be perfectly honest with you.
I think as well, Ryan, your man Postecoglou came from left field. He was just kind of thrusted in the bookies list as favourite, and it's kind of stuck from the late Friday afternoon. It was broke to hit Celtic Mirror fans talks. But before I go to you, Ross, what side do you actually lie on, Ryan, in terms of why this might have broke down?
In terms of this breaking down, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think it's to do with Richard Hughes, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I heard a couple of days ago that there was news that he wasn't going to make his way up to Celtic, and I think that was a big part of the reason why Eddie Howe wanted to come. He wants to surround himself with the people that he knows best. Whether that's a good thing or not for both us and Eddie Howe himself, I'm not too sure. But you would have thought he would have had some word with his backroom staff, the ones that would be able to come up with him. I don't imagine that he would have asked in the last couple of weeks of May. Surely he would have sounded them out a couple of weeks ago, or even a couple of months ago, because that's how long this has been going on for. It's a bit of a messy one. I don't know if the whole Peter Lawwell situation had an effect on the coaches not coming up as well. I saw the Telegraph were reporting on that. I'm not too sure. But, no, there just seems to be a lot of reasons why they didn't come, and I just wish this was ironed out sooner, because we're coming up in June. I mean, it's not really good enough, is it, when we're back in about 20 days?
Yeah, I think by the way you're speaking there, like it's a lot of unknowns, isn't it, really? Because you don't know, because Celtic come out with that statement, Ross, saying it's out with both their control, but again, that's trying to take blame away from both parties, but there's blame somewhere. And I listened to a certain guy on TalkSport today, and people don't like him. I mentioned it before on Twitter and stuff and got loads of flack, but Simon Jordan said something I found interesting. He said, it's laughable that Eddie Howe wanted to bring in his own director of football, and he can kind of see why maybe Celtic reneged in that, and he said there has to be blame on Eddie Howe as well. Yes, the board, like we've heard our opinions continuously, Ross, on this Celtic board, but do you think there's an element of blame to Eddie Howe at all in this scenario?
I think there definitely is. Definitely both parties are in some way to blame. What that is at the moment is, as you have said, it's purely guesswork. But for me, I feel like Howe has strung us along a bit. He has to have, like you have touched on there, he has to have said to these guys for Bournemouth months ago. I mean, after Celtic contacted him, he has to have known what he and they were planning to do before now. But then, I mean, on the other hand, you look at Celtic, they look to have put all their eggs in the Howe basket, which I mean is fair enough if there was a verbal agreement in place. But if Celtic have reneged on any part of the agreed in principle deal, if you like, which, I mean, by the way, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest with this board, we'll probably never know. I mean, Celtic, if they have reneged on that, they've only got themselves to blame, but we'll probably never know the full ins and outs. But what we do know for sure is that this whole fiasco has been one shit show from start to finish, and has brought absolute embarrassment and shame on the club and us as fans, especially ones like myself who were convinced he was coming. It's just really no good. But I mean, there's nothing else you can really do now bar like move on. I realise the next move in Postecoglou, if I'm saying that right, it doesn't fill most days with confidence. But how now for me is yesterday's news. I've had the weekend to sit in it. It's yesterday's news, and basically we just wait and see what's in store next in this current soap opera that we're going through.
But I understand what you're saying, Ross, in terms of saying how we'll have to move on from him. And I don't want to be spending, obviously, all the podcast talking about a certain individual, Eddie Howe. We all know what happened. But I can't accept that the board are thinking they came out with the season ticket renewals, ran 2 days before this was announced. And I'm convinced that they knew this broke down weeks ago. And they've tried to piggyback a few days' sales, hoping fans would come in their thousands, under the belief, because there was no clarification, that Eddie Howe would be the new manager. And I think it's disgusting, and as Ross rightly said, it's shameful the way the board have acted during this whole scenario from when Lenny left right up to now. We're still no further forward. And it really annoys me that people kind of forget too easy and move on with the norms. And the Eddie Howe yesterday news, fair enough, that's correct, and Postecoglou is meant to be the new favourite round, but you cannot forget the way the board have treated the Celtic fans, surely.
No, this whole season, I think the board have treated the Celtic fans with utter contempt, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I think last Wednesday was one of the worst examples of it. They put out a statement basically saying, we need your money, please come and get your season tickets. The manager will be announced soon. People thought the manager meant a manager that everyone else was talking about in Eddie Howe. So they allowed thousands of people to renew, because that's what they said. They said thousands of people have renewed. I don't know the exact number. Hopefully it's not that high, because loads of people have been duped in that case. They kind of just allowed the story to grow arms and legs with Eddie Howe without giving us any clarification on if Eddie Howe was actually coming through the door or not. The only time we've actually heard Celtic utter the name Eddie Howe, apart from what I would call a misstep on Celtic TV talking about the man, now looking back on that is quite embarrassing. But the only time they've talked about him since then is that statement saying that Eddie Howe was a great candidate. They painted them as like the top candidate, an excellent candidate for the job. Second paragraph, we're not getting him. How bad does that look? It looks absolutely awful from a PR perspective. We are an utter embarrassment, I think, just now. This weekend I've been hitting a red neck every minute because I'm thinking about how bad Celtic have been in a PR sense the past year. I'm just utterly embarrassed with the way this board is treating the fans at the moment. And to be fair, it's been like that for a couple of years. But I think the results have kind of masked that. And now that the results have been bad, people are looking closer and they're seeing how badly the board are treating the fans.
Yeah, and there is a lot of ill will. I mean, we did see that, obviously, the unfortunate attack on Law's house and stuff, and we totally condemn that and stuff. And sometimes it feels bad to criticise the board after them events. But you cannot forget, Ross, as Ryan rightly said, that this board, from start to finish during this whole, what was meant to be the 10 in a row season, have just failed to communicate. The Celtic fans weren't in the stadium. Celtic fans paid full price for season ticket money, as they're being asked to do again this season, by the way. And it's a disgrace. And what's your feelings over the last couple of days towards the board, especially now? They haven't even come out of the game with a follow-up saying what's the next process going to be. I know they said in the statement they're going to try and get a candidate in with the quality and the drive to provide further success at Celtic, but it's all load of shite, really, isn't it, Ross?
Aye, I mean, I firmly agree with what's just been said there. I mean, that the thing with the season tickets, I mean, they must think that us as supporters zip up the back. They've known that Howe deal was off before the season ticket renewals went out, and they've basically used it to entice the supporters, thinking we were going to have Howe to entice them into renewing. They've absolutely no shame, and they treat the Celtic fans with absolute contempt at every turn, and they have done for a couple of years. Again, like it's been touched upon there, they've done it for a couple of years, and it's highlighted more now because the results are so poor. I mean, they know that if they appoint this Postecoglou, the season tickets will inevitably will affect them, the sales. But fans will still buy, but it will only be in the same numbers if it was like Howe at the helm, if you like. But the board have been appalling. And if this appointment goes through and then goes south pretty quickly, I just dread to think of the backlash. It will be apocalyptic. So we've just got to pray it works out. And I mean, if Postecoglou comes in and Kennedy and Strachan remain in place, then I mean, the guy, he'd be as well having an emergency bag packed and false documents to get out of the country quickly, because I'd bet my house he's going to need them.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. But what we'll do for now, we'll park the Eddie Howe stuff, as you said. We'll leave that in yesterday's news, Ross, and we'll move on to the thing we seen on Friday when it was announced that Eddie Howe did collapse. This guy, Ange Postecoglou, I just nearly forgot it again. It comes and goes, but he's been installed as a bookie's favourite. There's been other people saying that the deal's basically done. It's just compensation to be agreed with Yokohama Minaros. And Ryan, before I obviously move on to what we know about him, what we've learned about him, and that's not much, obviously, because it's hard to find. But when you've seen that name being linked, now people bring it back to Ronnie Delia, the way he came in and stuff. But Ronnie Delia was in the Norwegian league. He won the league with Strom Godset, and when he came in, he was second choice. He was a risky appointment, but ultimately led us to the 2 league titles. But back then, that was a different animal. This season could get into the Champions League next season, could get you an automatic windfall of £40 million. And it seems like the Celtic board it is a panic move. I don't believe this whole advanced talk crap, because the links with the City group of Harkin coming in and Peter all of a sudden working at Manchester City, it just smacks of that, doesn't it?
Yeah, you might as well just call us Celtic City from now on, because we are basically a City group team. If you look at all the success, most of the successful signings that have came over the past 10 years have had some link to Manchester City, whether that be loan deals or permanent deals, such as like Boyata and that. So yeah, it stinks of the City group, to be perfectly honest with you. And I know Man City are a great team, but I don't know if a team like Celtic want to be a feeder club to some team bigger. I mean, Man City aren't a bigger team than Celtic. That's in terms of history and that. Maybe they are in terms of a global standpoint just now, but Celtic are a bigger team than Manchester City. It stinks of Desmond getting his grubby fingers on this again, and Peter Lawwell as well. They've always got to have somebody that's connected to them. I feel like Brendan Rodgers was the exception, and you saw how well Brendan Rodgers did do up to a point. And then Peter Lawwell got his hands dirty in that as well. He got too invested, and that all went pear-shaped. It is a risk, especially in a season that we're going for an automatic Champions League spot. I mean, any manager would have been a risk. Even Eddie Howe, to an extent, would have been a risk. But this is even an even bigger risk. The only experience Postecoglou's had is in Europe, anyway, is the third division of Greek football. I mean, it doesn't exactly. It doesn't exactly entice you for the new season. I know it's terrible to think that, but it doesn't really excite you as much as maybe Eddie Howe would have done. A sort of young coach coming in that had his own fresh ideas, and he was given his own blank canvas to sort of do his own thing. I don't think Postecoglou will have anything near that, and I think he just gives me this vibe as if he'll be happy to be the second choice because he wouldn't get this sort of opportunity anywhere else.
Yeah, it's like he would never reject an opportunity to come to Celtic. He's like Celtic's a coup for him, not the other way around. That's what I'm trying to say. But when you look at it, Ross, as well, and you made a great point there, Ran, in terms of the City Group connections. It really concerns me how aligned we're becoming with the Manchester City Group. I dread to think in a couple of years' time, this is all ifs and buts, Ross, if Desmond decides to sell up and sell his shares to the Man City Group, that would be disastrous in my point of view. And Harkin coming in, I've seen an outlet today reporting that the choice for Postecoglou was made outside the boardroom. I don't know how much to read into that, but I'm guessing that would be the Harkin influence if he was actually nailed on to come into the director of football role. But does it concern you at all with the likes of the Manchester City Group and if we're going down that road?
I mean, we're becoming sort of like a feeder club to an extent. As in, we're getting like all the players that Man City are not really wanting or whatever. But I don't know too much about the City Group, to be honest with you. But I don't think it would be good for Celtic. I mean, we're a big enough entity alone. We shouldn't need to take off that sort of thing. But I mean, as regards Harkin, I don't know a lot about him. It could be a good appointment, but I'm not too clued up in that, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, I don't think we really all are, but the City Group does buy clubs left, right, and centre and use them as training grounds. Players that don't need or don't want, and punt their staff over to as well. But another thing as well, what we're seeing, Ross, they said they're in advanced talks with this guy, and it's been happening. Well, actually, they put out, I don't know if they're feeding stories to the direct court, but they put out saying that they've been tracking this guy for months. This is the board again, in my point of view, Ross, just trying to fool the Celtic support, isn't it?
Aye. They've not been tracking him for months. Everything's fell through with Eddie Howe, and it looks pretty desperate to me for the outside looking in anyway. And it's very underwhelming if he is the guy that they're going for, as he isn't, let's say, he isn't the household name that we're all craving, but we know nothing about him. So if he's given the job, then I suppose everybody deserves a chance to sort of prove themselves and display what he can do. But not knowing him, it doesn't fill me with as much confidence as what I was feeling for next season. If it was going to be under Howe, keep mentioning him. I said I want to move on, but it's difficult to. But I mean, Brendan Rodgers has come. He's been quoted as saying that he thinks he's an outstanding coach, and he's had chats and he's seen his teams play. He feels he plays a sort of similar style to himself. So, I mean, he's not a bad guy to have in your corner, I suppose, but that's just one man's opinion. I don't know. If he comes in, you've got to give the guy time to try and prove himself, but it's no. I'm not going to be like travelling through to the stadium for the unveiling and totally excited. It's very underwhelming, but we'll just need to see what the future brings.
I think it was Damien Duff that said John Kennedy was one of the best coaches he ever worked with or in the world. It was one of them anyway, but Jesus Christ, if that's the standard of coaching that you think's world class, I'm lost for words. But I think you make a great point in terms of what you're saying, that he's the unknown guy. He's not the household name. It's just underwhelming. It's like when you go to make your dinner and it comes out burnt, it just fills you with dread to eat it, doesn't it? No, I mean, you don't want to waste food and all that. But coming to yourself, Ryan, we did touch upon it at the start there. Ross said about season tickets. For me, this brings on back to Ronnie Daly again, when the top tiers were closed and it was covered in posters of a club like no other, and the sponsorships, the logos, and all filling out the seats. Do you think that's going to be as big an impact as it was then, or bigger?
I was going to say the 2 guaranteed season tickets will be those 2 big posters up in the top tier, and I'm just certain they're going to be there next season. I mean, I think they are risking it with the whole, the fans haven't been here in over a year, you'll be desperate to get back, so we're just going to put whatever manager fits our needs and our way of thinking, and you'll be back in the stadium regardless. I think the season tickets will decrease purely because of the financial situation that some people find themselves in after a pandemic that's been going on for over a year, and it's still ongoing. Like, it's not gone away or anything. So, I mean, they talk about this waiting list being 15,000. I don't think there's a waiting list of 15,000 anymore. I was speaking to somebody and they said they were in the early hundreds before they got their season ticket. So that idea of a waiting list is gone, basically. So I think there will be a decrease, and that's quite worrying for the higher uppers of the club. But it's what happens when you take risks, especially in a 10-in-a-row season. You take risks and they don't pay off, and they'll see the consequences of that, unfortunately.
But see, one of the most baffling things for me, it's like if you make that appointment like a Howe, if that doesn't come, like a Favre, or like this is out of the imagination, but like Nuno Gomez, whatever his name is, from Wolves, and you would recoup that money back in season ticket sales in terms of covering their wages and the transfer budget being increased, Ross. And this is going to have a bigger impact in regards to the whole club, because we look forward to next season. And I said to you last night in the topics, what implications do you think this will have for the rebuild? And for me, it's going to be huge. Like this guy coming in, Postecoglou, we don't know if he knows the European game. I mean, if rumours led to believe, he doesn't have the right coaching badges, but I know there's ways around that. And it's like we're bringing this unknown quantity. Is he going to sign Australian players, Japanese players? Just no idea, Ross.
I know this is the question. I mean, without doubt, it's going to have huge implications on the rebuild. I mean, any notion that you might change maybe some of the wantaways' minds with an immediate sit down, like for example, an Ayer. I think a Howe could have sat down with him and dangled the carrot, the captaincy, and possibly moving them into the middle of the park in the Brown role. I think that, with the greatest respect to Postecoglou, becomes far less appealing now to like guys like Ayer. It could, like you've touched on there, it could affect the calibre of player that we're able to attract, because he's not as well known a manager. It's a real worrying. It's real worrying times on the face of it. You try so hard to be positive, but I don't know. I've followed Celtic for long enough to see that at this point, everything's not going to plan, and the end game doesn't look too positive. But right now, we can only hope, and it is hope now, that basically, to quote Jerry Cinnamon, that in Postecoglou, if he is appointed, we've found a diamond in the mud. Failing that, brace yourselves.
Or he's a belt, or I don't know. No, but like you can hear it in your voice, Ross. And say, to be fair to yourself, like you're usually the one in the group who's optimistic, can see things out of nothing, and you can hear how down you are in your voice. It feels like you're talking with your head in your hands the whole time. But that's the way.
Pretty much,
that's the way it is to the whole fan base at the minute. And I think what the Celtic board need to look at as well, the massive divide that has been caused throughout the whole of Celtic fan bases, whether it be older generation, younger generations, or the people in the middle. That's been evident over the weekend. I've seen numerous arguments about what way Celtic's be going, who does it should be appointing, and it's like, oh, this is all caused by the Celtic board, and you just want to wake them up and be like, look what you're doing. But I don't know. But coming to yourself, Aaron, do you think this will have major implications on the rebuild?
I think it does. I think maybe if we'd have got, I don't want to mention him again. I know that guy that comes from Bournemouth that we were so interested in a couple of weeks ago. If he was to have brought in Richard Hughes, he would have had different targets than the targets Fergal Harkin would have had. I think it will work probably better with the whole director of football head coach, because Fergal Harkin is obviously a fan of Postecoglou, obviously both being in the same City group. So I think he'll be signing the players that are needed for the rebuild, and Postecoglou will be there to sort of coach the players that are handed to him. I think that's the sort of role he'll have. He'll just purely be the coach of the players, but Fergal Harkin will decide on what players are getting signed, and then Postecoglou will work with the signed players. At the same time, Fergal Harkin hasn't even been appointed yet. I mean, there's talk that maybe tomorrow might be the day that he's officially announced as the director of football. But I mean, we talk about this Fergal Harkin and all these things that he's going to do. He's not even in the door yet. Like, we get Champions League qualifiers in little over than a month. We need to be signing players basically 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and we've not done anything. All we've got is Liam Shaw, who's went from one disaster at Sheffield Wednesday into another disaster at Celtic. So I feel kind of bad for him getting thrust into this. He'll be like, is there any good stories in football? I mean, it's just how bad it is. I mean, we are in a complete disaster at the moment, and the fans are there to take the brunt of it, because at the moment, Rangers fans and every other club are just laughing at us because of how much of a shit show we are, to put it nicely.
No, it's right. I mean, this is our banter year, isn't it? This is what it is, really. It's for people to laugh at us. We're meant to be the biggest club in Scotland. We're getting on like the smallest club in Scotland. So, I mean, we're a big club with basically amateur people at the helm, and it's madness that, I don't know. It's madness for me anyway that Celtic, I know we said it, but Celtic can attract the likes of Eddie Howe to get into the building. It's not as if he came from like a Liverpool, a Manchester City, and he's like, man, maybe that level's too small. But he's been unemployed for a year, and it's like, what the hell's going on? And before I move on, I'm going to come to you each individually. I'll come to yourself, Ross, first. Now, what could be a manager candidate apart from Postecoglou that would maybe appease yourself? That's something you could get behind and see the optimism from. Have you got anyone in mind?
Probably, like, for the sort of the list, the bookies list, if you like, you'd be looking at is it Favre or Farva? Farve, possibly. Is he actually realistic though? Why can't we just test the water with Benitez? I don't think he's working now, is he?
No.
Maybe they already have, and he said no. Who knows? I mean, off the sort of bookies list, I would probably say if there was no stumbling blocks, I'd be leaning towards, like, obviously Benitez or Favre or even Frank Lampard. But I mean, we've waited that long, like, and these sort of guys are not going to come in happily as a second choice. So, I mean, that's probably out of the list. My 1, 2, and 3: Benitez, Favre, Lampard. But yeah, whether they're realistic, whether they'll come, I don't know.
It's madness. It's still mad that we'll have to go off a bookies list, but my choices would be John Kennedy, Derek McInnes, Jack Ross.
See you later. I'm off.
Me personally, I would lean towards the likes of Farve, and I know people would say maybe it's because he's been in the German league, but he's proven he's done it in the Swiss league. He was good with Dortmund. I think he led them like the record wins in a row or something. It was like something like 15. So he's got pedigree in Europe. I'm sure he will be asking for a massive salary that Celtic couldn't afford. Benitez, again, it's a guy that you can approach, you can talk to. What's the other guy? Ralph Ragnick. I don't know if he's in a position on it, but he was touted at the start maybe to come in, and even as the director of football role. But these guys ran seem to be people that Celtic, I don't know what it is with them, but they never approach these guys. I don't think the likes of Benitez or Farve would rip your head off for picking up the phone.
No, I know. I think the only problem is now that if we were to go out of our way to contact these guys, they automatically know that they'll be at least third, fourth choice. So why would they come into a team? Why would they come into a team that's actively quoted other managers and fell flat on their arse? And now we're just asking everybody if they want the job. It's almost as if we're trying to punish these guys. Do you want this job? Do you want this job? Like, it should, at the end of the day, Celtic are or they should be an elite club. They should be a team that people strive to go to in their managerial career. Like, it should be an honour to manage Celtic. And I know that sounds biased, but it is true. We're one of the biggest institutions in world football. Like, we need to start acting like it. I mean, I thought that Plan B, if the Eddie Howe, I've said his name again, I need to take a shot every time I say Eddie Howe, honestly. I thought Plan B was going to be Enzo Maresca, and the fact that Eddie Howe is taking us down the garden path for so long, over a couple of months, I think we've missed out on someone that could potentially be a very special manager in the next 3 or 4 years. And I think the Fergal Harkin, Enzo Maresca partnership could have worked really well, because he obviously has links with the Man City under 23s. So I feel like we've missed out on that. If you look at the list of bookies' favourites, I would definitely look at Lucien Favre. He done a great job with Borussia Dortmund, and it's difficult to basically play for second place when it's so obvious that Bayern Munich are going to win the league every season. So I think he was a victim of his own success. Apart from him, Rafa Benitez, I mean, you've got to ask the question in order to get an answer. I don't think we ask the question enough with these sort of guys. I'm trying to think who else there is on the list. See, that's the thing. It's got so desperate that you'd actually take people such as Steve Clarke and Frank Lampard now because of the situation that we're in. I think the board are trying to use this in order for us to get Roy Keane, because they're like, oh, look at the quality of managers we're talking to here. We'll save it by getting Roy Keane. Like, I don't think anyone wants that, but it's something that I could see the Celtic board do quite easily.
I have to admit, the Ramsey before Rodgers came in, I would have took Steve Clarke in a heartbeat. I've followed Steve Clarke since he was manager of West Brom. I thought he was an excellent manager, and he proved it at Kilmarnock as well. But I'm with you in this. I think it's past for him. I think he's doing a good job at Scotland, and that's where he's to stay, take him into the Euros and stuff. But if we look past it, what we think would be good alternatives to the managerial position, I gave us a task to do a wee bit of fact finding on that. Oh my God, Postecoglou. I have to look every time I see him, make sure I'm saying that right. Right, Postecoglou. I'll give you what I have so far. Just obviously a brief overview. We all know he's managed the Australian national team. He's managed in the J League with Yokohama Minaros. He's managed like a Brisbane Roar, and apparently they were called Bresalona or something because of the way they played, or the way he had them play.
Barcelona.
Aye, whatever it is, Ross. There you go. You've done your research, right? So we'll look at it. He's managed the under-17s Australia, under-20s, that Greek team, Panachikala, whatever it's called, and then Brisbane Roar, Melbourne Victory, Australia, and then in Japan in the J League. His honours as a manager, they're Brisbane Roar twice A-League champions, Australia under-17s, he won a few honours with them, same with the under-20s. You guys can guess. I'm on Wikipedia right now, but give me a break, right? he's won the Asian Cup 2015 with Australia, which is apparently a big deal. I don't know much about it. I'm not going to pretend to. Yokohama, he's won the J League 2019. As in the individuals a manager, he's been the PFA Manager of the Year, A-League Coach of the Year, PFA Manager of the Decade. Funny enough, Eddie Howe was a manager of a decade in the lower leagues of England as well, so maybe a bit of similarity there. And the AFC Coach of the Year 2015. And with Brisbane Roar, longest undefeated streak, 36 games. Now, I'll come to yourself, Ross, first. Have you managed to find out anything about him, his style of play, what he likes to do with the ball, where he likes to counter-attack, anything like that at all?
Just really that it's like a fast-paced, possession-based game. I mean, the nickname Barcelona sort of alludes to that. I mean, the 36 game unbeaten run and stuff, that sort of ties in with what Rodgers was quoted saying about him. I mean, a lot of that, what you've touched on there, it sort of makes for good reading, and makes you slightly more positive that they thought of him coming in. However, I mean, I'm fully aware that all of these achievements are slightly diluted, given that it was done in Australia. And the question again still remains if he could do it at a huge club like Celtic with the pressures that comes with. But it's the old saying, you can only beat who's in front of you, and he has for the most part, and for that he can only be commended, I suppose.
Well, I get your point on that. I mean, one thing that concerns me is obviously the standard of league. I know we can't be picky. People criticise our league all the time, but that happens. We're used to that, especially from our neighbours down south. But the A League, the likes of Robbie Fowler when he was in his late 30s was still starring in the A League. Scott McDonald at the age he is now, no disrespect him, but he's still putting away goals in the A League. And it's almost like, Ryan, as Ross said, these achievements look well on paper, but when you deep dive into them and what leagues and stuff, what standard, you just don't quite know if it matches up with what he could achieve at Sellik, or if it could at all.
Yeah, I know it's a bit weird because you look at it and you're like, can he replicate that in a Scottish game? I mean, some of the teams play some good football over in Australia. It's got to be said. I know the standard. The standard isn't that great, but I think it says a lot that he's won competitions everywhere he's been in his management career, whether it be for the Australian national team. He won the Asia Cup. I know the opposition isn't great, but you've got to be in it to win it, I guess. And then he's went to Japan and he won the league in his second season. So, I mean, having that sort of winning mentality is really good. I've watched a couple of the clips that he's playing. It really is fast-paced football. He talked about saying he doesn't really have a plan B. He's got a plan A, and plan A will work.
That's a concern.
That is a concern.
That'll fit with Celtic if he's only got a plan A, because that's what they've had for about 3 years.
I don't even think we've had a plan. Never mind a plan A. I think we've just been Edward go out there and score a goal.
Yeah,
I think as well. He's football. Sorry, Stephen. He's football. When he was at what do you call them, Brisbane Roar, that had been described as the best that the A-League had ever seen. I don't know. Again, it's hard to draw comparisons as I've never seen it, but again, he's the best in that sort of area of the football, if you like. So, I don't know.
One thing I find interesting, at the minute in the J League, he's third with 4 games in hand, 34 points with the Yokohama Minerals. And I said this to you guys, but there's people in that league that are playing at 53 years old, 46 years old. And no disrespect to the Japanese league, none of us are experts on it. And if anyone wants to come back at me, that's fair enough. I'll take it and we'll talk about it. But that doesn't look good reading to me. It looks like a league that, I mean, it's a bit, the how I described it in the group chat. Remember when the Chinese league first came into play and it was like they didn't know what a football was? That's not being disrespectful, but the standard was quite low. Obviously now there's loads of money into it, and maybe a Japanese league will follow. But that's in my opinion, the Japanese leagues there or thereabouts are still trying to get up. I know they've got NES and stuff playing in that league with Fasal Kobe and stuff, but again, that's another player in his late 30s, and no doubt he still has talent. But coming to yourself, Ryan, like his honours list is good, right? And individual honours, he's won quite a few. In the Celtic team at the minute with the current squad, like the likes of Ayer, Christie, and things like that, do you think they'd be suited? Now, suited to playing his style, but the counter at, we've seen Jackson Irvine in open goal. He described it as chaos, but obviously in a good way. The way his team plays, I think it was something. What was the line used? Press and surpress. So win the ball high and counter attack them in their side of the field. That's the way he likes to play by all accounts. Do you think that would suit the players in Celtic's current team?
I think, yeah, there's a couple of players over the past couple of years, maybe under Lennon, they haven't been sort of tested in terms of like from the coach improving on their game. I feel like a lot of Lennon's tenure was basically trying to do what Rodgers was doing, but obviously he can't really do that because he's a bit of a lesser manager, if I'm being perfectly honest. You can't really compare the two. Players like Callum McGregor coming out after interviews and coming out during the post-match interviews and saying, I didn't know what we were doing here. We need someone that can give these players a concrete plan into what we're doing in each individual game. And he does sound quite meticulous with the way he talks about the game. He's obviously very obsessed with the way the game goes. And I mean, he's been a coach since 1996. I was born in 1997. That's a hell of a long time. So he's definitely experienced. I know you can't really, you can't really compare the leagues. But I mean, the only criticism I've got is that he's 55 years old, right? But he's never had that sort of opportunity to go to Europe. Like, why is no other team taking a punt on him apart from us? That's what worries me.
That's a valid question. I think I've seen something. Now I can't remember who said it, but someone said that they were approached by Martin Bain from Sunderland. Remember when that documentary was kicking about? And do you remember that documentary when Ian McGinley went mad at people throwing snowballs? That was quite funny. But he was approached for like a reference for him, and then he said something along the lines of, "We can't have him. We need a big name for the fans," which is obviously not the way Celtic are thinking. But I don't know.
And they went and got Chris Coleman, and he got them relegated to League One.
So I do get the fact that sometimes an unknown prospect can be wow, and he can come in and do wonders. And I've heard people say obviously he's 55 years old, but I want to be careful of that because sometimes we've seen players who develop late and get their moves late in their career. I mean, Jamie Vardy's a prime example. He came into the professional leagues when he was 24, 25, and look at him now. But again, we don't know about Postecoglou, Ross. And I said to you guys, could he potentially do something with the squad with his style of play, that high intensity? But the concern, as Ram rightly pointed out, why is no other European club took the punt on him?
Aye, I mean, it's a question I can't really answer. But, I mean, you said he's 55. I think that's quite a good age for a manager. He's been around the game as in terms of a coach and a manager for a lot longer than Eddie Howe. I've just said his name again.
Take a shot, everybody.
I'm drunk already, don't worry.
I mean, you seem that certainly in the UK in recent times, a lot of managers have been getting their shot, if you like, off the back of their name as a player, and it doesn't always work. So I mean, the guy has sort of worked his time, if you like. So maybe this is his. Everybody deserves a first opportunity. If this is his first opportunity, maybe he deserves it. I don't know enough about him. Maybe he will come in and do wonders. Then again, maybe he won't. This is the quandary, and this is the chance that you take. Most managerial appointments, you take a chance, but
you do, yeah,
you do. There's an element of chance in most of them, but I mean, he's untried and untested in these shores and in Europe, apart from, as you said, in Greece. But I'm reluctant to just like shut him down completely because I don't know enough about the guy, and I feel like everybody deserves a chance.
No, I get what you're saying, but it's me. My point of view is we're left with potentially this guy coming in. We know nothing about him as Celtic fans. The Celtic board haven't exactly helped in this situation, and if rumours led to believe as well that one of the reasons why talks broke down with the aforementioned Eddie Howe was the transfer, was they were wanting to give him a list of transfer targets, a tight budget, and he didn't quite like that, Ran. And to be fair, I've seen a lot of Australian bloggers and not podcasters, but people who are tweeting, I guess retweet it, you can read it and stuff, it's there to read. And they say this guy, Postecoglou, what is it again? Postecoglou.
Postecoglou.
Oh, but yeah, Postecoglou, right? And they say he's not a
Just call him Posty.
they say he's not a yes man, right? But if it's led to believe that Celtic have the transfer targets already drawn up for next season, what's he going to walk into? And if he doesn't agree with it, does that not point to, again, the Celtic board doing the underhand tactics and bringing players in without their manager say so?
Yeah, that definitely worries me. The fact that they've got a list of transfer targets potentially already there when we don't even have a director of football who's supposed to be the one that draws up those short lists of transfer targets. I know Nicky Hammond, that was his job as well for recruitment. We've got nobody in that role. So the question is, who is doing that work? I mean, you don't want to blame the one person, but it seems that Peter Lawwell can't get his fingers off these transfer dealings. He seems to get a high off of this sort of de facto director of football. Maybe he should just be the director of football. He's been more qualified than anyone else over the past 10 years because he's signed everybody anyway, regardless of who the manager is. Like your Malumbus and that. I was looking last week. I mean, I can't believe we signed players like Yusuf Malumbu. And I mean, I know he's a Rangers player, but Glenn Kamara was there for 50 grand. We could have signed him.
Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. Was that the season we missed out McGinn?
It was the same season, yeah, because we haggled, what was it, 500,000? John McGinn was desperate to go to Celtic. He was desperate to pull on the green and white, and we haggled over 250,000 or something like that. I mean, we've done the same last season for Ivan Toney. I mean, to be fair to him, Ivan Toney hasn't really done much this season, I guess. But, just the 32, I think it was this season.
33
goals. So, a Yeti could only dream of getting as many goals as that. I mean, he wouldn't get as many games as that, never mind goals.
A Yeti can only dream of getting his boots tied on the pitch. That's the way his season went for Celtic. And the way you said there, the transfer targets are concerning. And you look at it, you miss out again, you get Malumbu. You miss out in Tony, you get a Yeti. I mean, fair enough, we've said in this podcast before, maybe there's a player there. We just need to see him in a run of games. But coming to yourself, Ross, is it a concern for yourself as well that the board are still seemingly doing the same things that they've done for years gone by and not learned anything? Now, I don't want to put much on Dominic Mackay, right? He seems to be the guy at the minute who is kind of exempt from any criticism. But for me, I don't quite buy that, right? He's senior enough, and I don't care if he's shadowing Lawwell. Basically, what Lawwell's doing is shaping his term and tenure for next season. He needs to grow a pair of balls, and if he doesn't agree with it, at least say something to get his point across. At the moment, as Ryan said, it looks like Lawwell still has his fingers in all these pies, and he's not letting go of the reins quite yet.
Aye, it does, aye. It smacks of that. And to touch on the transfer lists, if you like, I think that's really, really worrying if they're bringing in a manager and giving him a list of transfer targets. If I'm coming in as a manager and that gets handed to me, I'm just saying, well, that's not happening, or I'm away. Because that personally, for me, I've always said that the manager, or if indeed we're bringing in a director of football, it should be between the two. Law should just step aside and shut his mouth, basically, on that front. And as you've said, your man Mackay, I hear what you're saying, but we don't really know what the conversations are between the two of them. If it's true that Law's still got to be behind the scenes in some capacity, that's worrying as well. I think we need a clean break for him and just let Mackay do his thing. But again, that's a guy that I think he's not fully in position yet, and I think he needs to be given the time to start doing his work and implementing what it is he wants to do if and when Law does eventually leave the building.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the Dominic Mackay thing at the moment, Ryan?
I do think he deserves some of the blame, I'll be honest, because I have heard that he did have talks with that aforementioned Bournemouth man that we're not going to talk about anymore. It's very difficult not to talk because his surname sounds like something that I use every second word. But he has been involved. He's been on the door. He's been a board member since I think it was it the 19th of April he came in or something like that.
Yeah, something like
that.
So he still is culpable for some of the problems that have happened. I don't understand why he's not given a sort of speech to the fans or sort of an open address to the fans other than the fans forum. Like, not all of us are on the fans forum and not all of us are part of a supporters group. There's a lot more of us on the opposing side than that side, and he's not openly came out and talked to any of us yet. I mean, I would have liked at least a wee message to say, look, I'm in the door, here's my plans. I mean, I've got to be honest, I do expect in the next couple of weeks a roadmap to be published as to what our 5-year plan is going to be. I don't know if that is too much to ask for, but I really want to know what direction this club is going for. Are we looking to improve in Europe? Or are we just settling for winning the league in Scotland? Because at the end of the day, we've done that. We've won the league in Scotland 9 years out of 10. I know we didn't win it last year, but we need to be pushing forward because we're losing money, get put out the Champions League in the qualifiers, and that's going to catch up with us eventually because, unfortunately, on the other side of the city, we've got a team that's more equipped at winning European qualifiers and winning European ties than ourselves, and that's not a good look.
No, it isn't a good look. It definitely isn't. And I love the way you said there, and in the coming weeks, you expect a roadmap to be laid out. You could have literally said there, in the coming 5 years, I expect a roadmap to be laid out. Because at this precise moment, the communication from the board, unless it's something bad or literally just shite in a PR point of view, is disastrous, and all the fans are jumping on it. And I get the people who say they're doomed if they don't and they're doomed if they do. And again, if they give us something with a bit of positivity instead of the shite narrative that they're spinning continuously, then we'll get behind them, as we always do. Now, before we end, I want you guys to try and give me a positive with Ange in charge. See, I forgot his name again. With Ange in charge. I'll come to yourself, Ross. Can you give me a positive scenario looking forward next season with Postecoglou? Say it again for me.
Postecoglou.
With Postecoglou in charge.
No. No.
Just try.
I think if he is appointed, he has to be treated by the fans the same way as Mr. Eddie would have, with the same. He has to be treated with the same understanding and humility at the end as what they would have treated Eddie Howe. I'm just going to say it because I'm getting my words muddled up there. I think, I don't know.
It's difficult because we don't know much about him.
Aye, exactly. Aye. I mean, moving forward, there'll still be guys. There's going to be guys brought in and guys going to leave. He's not appointed yet, but if he is, let's see what he does over the summer. See how the squad looks in terms of personnel by the time we're ready to kick off again. Let the guy start to implement his ideas and pretty much give him a chance to prove a big chunk, and admittedly, probably myself included, to prove us all wrong. I'd never be more happy to eat a big slice of humble pie if he did. But basically, to sum up, he really, if he does get the job, then we have to give him some time to show us what he can do. He has to be treated in the same way as a sort of more household name would be treated, and given the same amount of time to show us what he can do. That's all I can really say on it.
That's fair enough. What about yourself, Ren?
I think the one positive that I would take out of Postecoglou possibly coming in the door is the fact that he's not a Celtic man. I think that's been a big problem over the past couple of years, that we've allowed too many Celtic men through the door. I know Brendan Rodgers liked to say he was a Celtic man, but Brendan Rodgers is a Brendan Rodgers man at the end of the day. I just want a clean break from this sort of supposed Celtic man culture. I want someone who's not connected to the club coming in and implementing his own culture in the team. And the fact that he's an unknown quantity might help against teams, because we've become far too predictable in the way that we play. You look at Rangers. Rangers have had our number since December 2019, you could say, in that League Cup final. Yes, we won that cup that day, but it took a goalkeeping masterclass for us to win that cup, and Morelos to miss again against us. But obviously put that right this season. But yeah, we become far too predictable under Lennon, especially, and a lot of teams were able to figure us out really, really quickly this season, or that season that's just passed. So maybe a different style of play and a different emphasis on different styles and tactics might help us, due to the fact that he's an unknown quantity. But there's still risk involved in this appointment. I I'd love for him to make it and make it work and for us to get back on top. But ideally, it's a bit of a rebuilding job that will take a couple of years, I think, to fully materialise. I know that won't sound good to a lot of Celtic fans, but rebuilds don't happen overnight. They take a couple of years to fully get into full swing. So we need to give it time, unfortunately.
Well, I think one of the things he did say that sometimes it takes teams 6 to 12 months to get used to how he plays, which again is time that Celtic don't have. But if we want the rebuild to happen, as you said, it takes time. It doesn't take a week or 2 weeks or 3 months. You have to implement the style of play, his style of coaching, and the players he wants in. I like the way you spend it there, saying that he's not a Celtic man, and I actually never really thought about that because I've just had the red mist all weekend, just full of anger. But again, that's a good way to spin it. And I have watched clips of his teams play, and YouTube can only show you so much. We all know that in terms of players and stuff. And by all accounts, his style looks pretty impressive. Impressive from the front, defender from the front, mainly like the way we used to do under Rodgers, especially in his first season. And hopefully, if he comes in, then that's the type of form Celtic can produce. And as Ross rightly alluded to, we need to get behind him. We need to show him support, show the guy respect. And I know I forgot how to pronounce his name continuously throughout the show, but out of respect, I didn't want to attempt it in case it balls it up. But do you know what I mean? But we'll have to get behind him and see what he can produce. It's the Celtic board's fault that we're in this mess. We all know that. But at the end of the day, Celtic Football Club is our team, the supporters' team, and we just had to get behind him and show all the support we can. Now that brings us to the end of the show, Ross and Rand. But you aren't going away yet. What you are going to do is the quiz. Now,
oh yeah,
Ryan said to me over Twitter that he doesn't want it to be a stadium quiz. So what I've done for you, Ryan, is a stadium quiz. Is that okay?
It's absolutely fine. Do you know, I was trying to do that reverse psychology because I've been doing my homework over the weekend.
So, as you know on the show, that it's 5 questions. It's first to 3. Whoever shouts out the loudest, I'll give the points to. And the prize again is your pride and a seat in the boardroom at Celtic Park. So, if you're ready, we'll crack on.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it.
In order, tell me the 3 biggest stadiums in Scottish football.
Celtic Park, Ibrox, Hampden.
I'll give you one more shot. Ryan, you go first, because I heard you first.
Celtic, Ibrox, and then Hampden.
No, Ross.
Celtic, Ibrox. Is it any stadium or football stadium?
It's a stadium. I'm not. You have to name it.
Right. Has it got to be in order?
Yes.
Right. So we'll go Celtic Park, Murrayfield, Ibrox.
You just both fluffed it. Celtic Park, Hampden, Ibrox. Right.
That's what it is.
Who plays at Hallidays?
Dundee United.
Dundee United.
Ross 1-0. Who plays at the Tony Macaroni Stadium?
Livingston.
2-0, Ross. Who plays at Station Park?
Alloa.
Nope. Over to you, Rand.
Station Park. Is it Brecon? I don't know.
No, forfeit. We'll move on. Who plays at Lynx Park?
East Stirling. Don't know.
Nope. Over to you, Rand.
Fizo. I don't know. Cove Rangers.
I've never even heard of that.
No. Who plays at Glebe Park?
I've never
Queen of
even
the
heard of
South. Beautiful.
No. Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? I'll give you an easy one because yous are absolutely useless. Who plays at Rugby Park?
Come on.
2-1. Rand's back in it. Who plays at Capello Park?
Morton.
I have to give it to Rand. That's 2 each. That's who I heard first. Who plays at McDermott Park?
St Johnstone.
Ross, you cleaned it. 3-2, buddy. You won the quiz. Is this your first win?
No, I've won 2 or 3, I think.
Oh, have you? I just thought it was your delay. No way you always would put your delay.
There's a delay there again.
But fair enough.
I thought there was a delay in that last one. I thought I said St Johnstone first. But, well, it's all good.
Thanks to Ross for coming back on and their special guest, Ryan McGinley from the Sellik the Thunder. Have you enjoyed it?
It's been great. It's been good fun. Good to get it all out, because there's plenty in there to get out regarding Celtic. But thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
No worries. No doubt we'll have you back on in the future. And to the guys who are listening, we appreciate the support that you're giving us. It's really appreciated within the podcast channel. And until next time, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.